Most learners would love to find their musical flow and achieve a flow state of mind during their practice sessions, but for many it just never seems to happen. Practice sessions can often be challenging, and whilst we do experience some rewards and joy of playing, many of you still wish that you could find your flow state. In this video, I'd love to talk to you about how to achieve a flow state of mind so that you can play music better. From my many years of teaching experience, I've noticed that most adult learners challenge themselves far too much, which is why they have so many problems. Rarely do adults reach a stage where, when learning a piece, they can play it fluently and accurately all the way through without those frustrating mistakes. Most people get to a reasonable stage, but they've still got a bar or two that they find difficult, or maybe they've got gaps and hesitations, which is compromising the flow. And even those that do manage to get all the notes in the right place often come to me and say, yeah, I can play it, but it just doesn't sound like the version I've listened to or the version I can hear in my head. It's right, but it's not musical. And many of these problems arise because we're learning pieces that are just that little bit too challenging for us. If you're looking to be in a flow state of mind, you may have to be prepared to choose something a little bit more accessible. Now, flow is when we're in a pleasurable state of deep concentration. It's a heightened level of focus and it's a documented neurological condition. Neurologists have tracked the changes in the brain that occur when we are in flow. And Mi Csikszentmihalyi, I hope I said that correctly, from the University of Chicago, is one of the leaders in the field. If you want to learn much more about flow outside of the realms of this video, then I suggest you go and check out some of his literature. And stay with me to the end of this video because I'm going to share my best way that you can find your flow, and it may take you by surprise. So let's dive in. So how do we find our flow in music? Well, it all starts by choosing the right piece. You need to choose something that's got the right amount of challenge and ease so that you can find your musical flow. And when you do, you'll make better progress, which leads to more motivation, enthusiasm, and better results. You'll also have more space to be focused and aware. And those are two things that are essential to make progress. They're the things that you'll need to have if you want to improve your technique. It's no good playing lots and lots of technical exercises if you're doing that without a high level of focus and awareness. And of course, if the music is too challenging, all your attention goes on trying to play the right notes in the right place. You don't have the space to think about your tonal control. You know, are you evenly matching the tone when you cross over registers or when you move from one note to the next? You can't think about the articulation. You can't listen to, am I really playing that legato line smoothly or is it a bit bumpy? You can't think about expression things such as dynamics, rubato, vibrato, and ultimately you can't really convey the character of the music because you're too wrapped up in trying to play the right notes with the right fingers in the right place. Now, for most learners, being in a state of flow is not something that they've experienced. Well, not yet anyway. Hopefully you might find a way forward after you've watched this. So remember, do stay with me to the end of this video. Normally when we practice, our inner critic, which is part of the executive brain in the prefrontal cortex, is always chatting away to us. That inner critic takes charge of things like judging ourselves, our self-awareness, and our higher level of planning. This part of the brain, in a way, likes to act as our protector. It likes to keep us safe. It's hyper-aware and super diligent. It's a fan of lists and time management. And whenever we're trying to do something that's challenging, that protector, that inner critic, steps in and starts talking to us to hold us back. And there's a good reason for that. The brain's main purpose is to keep us alive. It's to conserve energy. And of course, whenever we're finding something challenging, we exert much more energy. We need higher levels of concentration, for example. So it's not in the brain's interest for us to be constantly outside of our comfort zone. So the inner critic within us is kind of like our protector. It draws us back to preserve energy and keep us safe. So it likes to keep us convergent. In other words, it likes to follow the conventions and keep us unremarkable. It likes us to do the same things. It likes us to follow our habits because, of course, doing so is the safest course of action. It gives us familiarity. It doesn't need us to exert more energy. And when we're in this state, which is unremarkable and carrying our lives and our practice sessions without thought process or without any intentional thought, then this is the brain working without flow. The opposite of that, of course, is when you experience the magic of flow, the protector goes quiet as changes in the brain occur. The activity in the prefrontal cortex of the brain slows down and other parts of the brain light up. And what this means is that the constant distractions of fears, worries, self-criticism and those character traits just begin to melt away and we become what's called our true selves. We lose our ego, and when we find flow, it opens up a whole new world of possibility for us. It can allow you to be more creative. It can help you grow musically. It can offer you true relaxation. It can also be healing and spiritually very rewarding, and so much more. Being in flow is an exciting place to be, and I wish for all of you to find that flow state of mind. Csikszentmihalyi, the neurologist I mentioned earlier, describes flow as follows. The ego falls away, time flies. Every action, movement and thought follows inevitably from the previous one, like playing jazz. Your whole being is involved and you're using your skills to the utmost. Doesn't that sound like a wonderful place to be? Who wouldn't want to find their flow state of mind? Flow experience, though, can occur in many different ways for different people. One hat doesn't fit all, so to speak. It often happens when you're doing something that you really enjoy and in which you are already quite skilled at, which is another reason why trying to learn music that is beyond the cusp of your ability is not the way to find your flow in music. Csikszentmihalyi gives us a list of 10 indicators that can help us ascertain whether we're in a state of flow, and I want to share those with you now. There are many reasons why you want to find your flow state when you practice. The first is that it's addictive. Yes, the pleasurable qualities of flow make us want to keep returning to it. So when you think of musicians who are talented, it isn't true. There's no such thing as talent. It's just that those musicians have learned how to practice in the right way, and they've also learned, maybe by accident, maybe intentionally, how to find their flow state, and they'll do anything to stay there. Flow also offers us a great sense of fulfillment. People in a flow state enjoy what they're doing more because the task becomes more enjoyable. You have more fun. You're also more likely to find it rewarding, which of course gives us a greater sense of happiness. Flow also increases our levels of motivation, because it's a positive mental state. And when I talk about motivation, I'm not just talking about, if you like, feeling more enticed to practice, but it also gives you what I call intrinsic motivation, which is more about fulfilling your own happiness and motivating yourself for you rather than motivating your sense for an external reward, such as a graded exam, for example, or moving on to the next level of a course, or moving on to book 2 in the tutor series that you're following. Being more motivated for you, for the joy of music, in the long run is much more sustainable. And people, when they find their flow, are also more engaged. When you're in flow, you're fully absorbed in the task at hand. Researchers have found that this enhances our productivity, our creativity, and our overall performance. So in a nutshell, you basically achieve more in less time. Flow has so many benefits, and one other that I didn't really mention there was creativity, because the act of achieving flow indicates that you've already gained a certain level of mastery of a particular skill. And in order to keep in flow, you're going to want to find new challenges and information. So that opens up your creative mind, because you're, if you like, on a journey of exploration so that you can stay in a flow state. So to summarize, flow is associated with an increased level of happiness, more motivation, greater creativity. It allows you to regulate your emotions more effectively and has numerous other positive effects. According to Mi Csikszentmihalyi, there are 10 factors that accompany the experience of flow. While many of these components may be present, it's not necessary to experience them all to be in a flow state of mind. So let's have a look at this list of 10 key factors. Number 1, the music you are playing is intrinsically rewarding. The second factor, you have a clear list of goals that are attainable. And when we talk about goals, there needs to be the right balance between pushing ourselves but also being realistic about whether we can achieve them. I have a whole blog post on that which I'll link to in the description of this video. The third thing, you have to be completely focused on the activity. So many of us, when we're practicing, we're easily distracted. We can hear perhaps a family member in the other room, maybe preparing dinner or watching television. We're aware of our mobile phone, perhaps, even if it's on silent. We're perhaps thinking about other things. We're not completely absorbed in the task at hand. But when we find our flow state, we are completely focused and all other things melt away. Number 4, you feel totally in control of the music that you're practicing and your fingers. Now, this isn't possible if we're punching above our technical level. If we're challenging ourselves at the cusp of our technique, then it's unlikely that we're going to feel totally in control of our fingers. And that's why finding your flow state really does rely on choosing an appropriate piece of music to practice. The 5th one on the list is that you may experience a sort of feeling of calm and serenity. You're no longer self-conscious. That inner critic, that protector has gone away. And like I said, changes in the brain do take place when you're in flow and you become your true self. So you're no longer criticizing those mistakes. Instead, you're finding a new level of confidence and, in a sense, a new level of proficiency. Number 6, you're able to give yourself immediate feedback. And that's an important thing to be able to do, because just like focus and awareness, that are 2 essential ingredients to improve our technique, being able to give yourself constructive feedback, so not like, I got the rhythm wrong, or, oh, that was rubbish. That's not helpful feedback. You want to be able to give yourself feedback that's constructive to helping you move forward in the future. So why did you play that wrong note? Was it that you didn't stretch the finger far enough? Was it that you overstretched the finger? Did you press on the string too hard? Those sorts of things. And when we're in a flow state of mind, we're able to give ourselves immediate feedback, which is constructive. Number 7, there's the right balance between skill and challenge. And that's a difficult one to find, because as adults, we always like to think that we're further along than we actually are. And it's sometimes hard to admit to ourselves that it's okay to play within our realms of capability. We don't need to be constantly challenging ourselves in order to make improvement. In fact, it's more beneficial if you're not always punching, if you like, or clutching at the cusp of your technique. Number 8, you are unaware of your physical needs. You've been practicing that long that you've forgotten to go to the toilet or forgotten to get that glass of water because you've been in your own world, your flow state. And you've forgotten about all those things that we usually use to distract us and take our attention away from the practice session. Number 9, you are in deep concentration with a heightened sense of awareness. So nothing can distract you when you're in flow. You are, if you like, blinkered to the world. You are completely focused on what you're doing, and you're highly aware of every movement that you're making, and you're enjoying the whole process. And finally, number 10, with all that enjoyment, you lose track of time. This is one of the traits of being in flow that many people experience. If you've been doing an activity and then you look at your watch and you go, oh my goodness, I can't believe it's like 4 p.m. And before you know it, half the day has gone because you've been so absorbed in what you've been doing. And If that's happened to you, then congratulations, you've likely been in a state of flow. Now, the one thing that flow is not about is zoning out. You have to be actively engaged during flow. To be in flow requires a moderate level of difficulty, but the challenge must be well within your capabilities. And I promised at the start of this video that I would show you what you needed to do to find your flow state of mind, and here we go. Stephen Kotler from the GNOME project has done a lot of research on flow, and he's come up with a way of finding the exact level of difficulty you'll need to balance out being engaged and the challenge involved to find your flow state. And if you look on this graph on the screen right now, you'll see on the right hand side the vertical line measures the level of challenge. So we go from 0% challenge, in other words it's so easy we can do it with our eyes shut, to being in a state of being 100% challenge, and that would be where we just totally couldn't play the music. It would be like way too hard, and we would just look at it and be terrified. Now the horizontal axis measures how engaged we are. So if we're at 0%, we're kind of like really bored, and if we're at 100%, we're engaged. Now we need to find, to be in flow, the right balance of being engaged and challenged. And I'd love for you, at this part of the video, for you to just type in the comments what you think as a percentage that ratio should be. And I think many of you are going to be really surprised when I reveal to you in a moment what it is. This is the balance between the level of difficulty in the piece that we are learning, alongside having enough interest that we can stay highly engaged. And you'll be surprised, probably, I think, drum roll, that the level is only 4%. Yes, that's right, 4%. The music that you should be choosing to practice should have a difficulty level of 4% for us to find our musical flow. If you're doing something that's challenging you much more than 4% and you're getting frustrated, you're probably trending towards 10%. Or even more, if you're finding that you've been spending perhaps a month or two on a piece and it's still not making great progress, then that balance has gone out the window and it's probably up at 40 or 50%, and your chances of finding flow are very limited. So the key takeaway from today is to consider carefully the level of challenge when you choose your next piece of music to learn. Just think back to that flow chart, 4%. Right now, ask yourself, is the level of challenge, level of difficulty in the piece that you're learning way above 4%? And if so, think about dialing it back. Now, I'm always saying that 80% of making progress is changing the mindset. And that's why in my membership, Learn Music Together, we do a monthly mindset momentum call. In our most recent call, we had an enjoyable discussion about why adults feel that they need to be learning new pieces of music constantly in order to feel that they're making progress. Because for many professional musicians, we don't spend our time practicing one new piece after the next. We focus in on technique, which means that we take something much easier, right back at the beginner level quite often, one scale for example, and we spend time doing lots of things to improve our tonal control, our coordination, tweaking our technique so we can connect the notes a bit better. And in doing this, it allows us to find our flow state and really focus on what we're doing so that we can, first of all, enjoy the process, love the process, but also continually improve. And while I can tell you that constantly challenging yourself with ever more difficult music or learning one piece after the next is not the best way to make progress, and I can share lots of proof and videos like this, ultimately, you are the only one who can make the change. And that can be hard to do by yourself. Often, as humans, our ego is the biggest thing that gets in the way. To the world, we want to put out there that we are getting better, we're playing this, we're doing that grade, we've achieved this. But deep within us, is that really what gives us a sense of joy and happiness? Are we really being true to ourselves? Would there not be a much greater sense of achievement if we were to find our flow and have lots of music that we could play fluently and enjoy and be more confident to perform to others? Would that not be a greater sense of momentum and offer us a real sense of true progress? But like I said, it takes a huge mindset shift to get there, and that's hard to achieve by yourself. So if you'd like some help, I'd love for you to consider joining Learn Music Together. That's my membership. Now, currently there is a wait list, so unfortunately you can't join today, and that's because I'm all about helping my members make progress, and I can only do that if I give them the time that they deserve. But you can get on the wait list, and I'll put the link in the description below. In the meantime, I want to encourage you to choose a piece to learn next that's way easier perhaps than you have been doing, so that you can try and find your musical flow. And if you're looking for how to create interest in your practice sessions, there are a couple of links on the screen right now to help. Whilst you're there, I'd love it if you could give this video a thumbs up, and if you've not already subscribed to this channel, please do so. Not only will you get notified when I release new videos, but in liking and subscribing to the channel, you're also helping it to grow. And that's a very generous thing to do, not just for me, but for other people who've yet to discover the benefits and the tips that I share with adult music learners just like yourself. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.